Hey guys, and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Solo, and this is my Max Burst Minion Necromancer for Season 4. The point of this build is to kill everything extremely effectively using such high levels of burst rather than sustained DPS. If I'm able to kill most anything in one opening combo, then I'm able to get away with maintaining a focus more on speed clear to maximize my time. While I believe I can easily push the single target DPS of this build higher, or take away from DPS and actually make it way more tanky at the cost of that output, I don't yet feel I need to do either of those things. This build, as you can see, is easily able to hit up to 200 million in one combo, or rather that's one hit to be specific. We're not counting in there the millions of other ticks of damage from my skeletons, the golem basics, the warriors, or whatever. That's just the golem slam. For another example, here's the build clearing a tier 97 essentially mindlessly because nothing is threatening here and it all dies instantly. Or as another example, here's the pit level that actually matters to all of us right now, level 61, the point where you get those highest materials for Masterworking. And that was even more about speed than DPS in that clip because I was still running Decompose at that point. What about a tormented boss like Tormented Duriel, one of the most important to be killing right now? Yep, I cleared him in a group and we weren't even all level 100 at that point. Now outside of the challenging content, you've got your Whispers, your Helltide, World Bosses, anything else, it's not a threat. It can't do damage and you're instantly killing it while moving quickly. I think this tackles everything it needs to while playing on that kind of knife's edge for how you can have consistent burst while being able to speed clear as fast as possible. That's my desire right now, progress and upgrade my gear as quick as I can. This just hits everything it can. Again, I know I could make this more survivable. I know I could make it more about single target and see bigger single numbers, but this is just an overall build that's going to push the pace as its top priority. And it's not even finished. I don't even have the best gems in my weapon. I don't have every gem slot even unlocked. It's so expensive and the materials are so rare for some reason. I'm only at level 4 Masterworking and all my gear right now, so there's a lot further I can take this. But this is where I'm at right now, what I'm thinking and why. My next step is to iron everything out, make it stronger, because I am planning on pushing the pit and the potential. If you're a casual player though, this is going to be more than enough to clear everything in the game that matters and feel very strong. With all that said though, let's just explain the build. Let's start with the Book of the Dead. Up first we have the skeletal warriors on Reapers. Now you can either use upgrade 1 or 2. I'm currently using 2 because having more corpses means more damage for me. It helps with a single target specifically. If you're speed clearing and nothing is threatening you in any way, I would actually go for upgrade 1, reducing the cooldown so that you can golem slam more, because that's the most important thing. For the mages, it's still upgrade 1 on Shadow. It's just straight up more increased damage for us per active Shadow Mage, and that just enhances the minion damage too. Golem is blood on upgrade 2, maximizing its output. However, if you're looking for survivability, you definitely should consider upgrade 1 for a much later pit pushing probably. So for the skill tree, we have 2 sets to consider. It's basically pit pushing or single target. The swap is very simple and very easy, but let's just explain. We have 2 points just to get us to the core abilities. It does not matter. Of course, we're taking blight for the upgrade of supernatural blight, 20% times increased damage to enemies within the blight. It is phenomenal. We're also picking up hued flesh. On the next tree, we're of course getting all of skeletal warrior mastery. 1 point into Grim Harvest gets us all the way to max fueled by death. We max out Death's Embrace, Death's Approach, amplified damage, and of course skeletal mage mastery. You can see that I've also maxed out Decrepify. This massively increases the slow of Decrepify, which is really nice for survival purposes in pit pushing, but also gives you slightly more, almost 4% increased DR. And DR stacking of that nature is going to be really important as we go into the higher pits. We enhance that for Abhorrent though to help with CDR so that we can again golem slam as much as possible. On the next tree, I'm 4 out of 5 in Corpse Tendrils. That's just as much as possible so that I can maintain the Grasping Veins aspect buff. This is where you could save 3 points and put them somewhere else easily though, but we enhanced that for the vulnerable gen. Also here we go necrotic, so we're generating fortify constantly, and we want that movement speed from Reaper's Pursuit. On the ultimate tree, be aware that Army of the Dead is only upgraded to prime. The supreme version is just not necessary. It instantly raises all your dead like warriors and mages, and that's not something you need to be concerned with. We max out Golem Mastery as our most important passive, Inspiring Leader, and of course Hellbent Commander. This means you need to stand near to your minions to give them this buff. The main swap here though, depending on what you're doing, is your key passive. Kalin's Edict gives us 3% attack speed for each active minion. Right now I've got a total of 11, so that's 33% increased attack speed. That would push us over 40%, and because of the Paragon node Cult Leader, each 20% is an increase to the damage by 30% times. So I'm getting that twice because the key passive. That's the best for burst, and I'm still having incredible single target because of it. However, you should definitely consider not running Kalin's Edict and instead running Shadow Blight for a gear swap I'm going to explain shortly. Moving on to the Paragon though, I'm going to quickly go through this. There's a lot to cover. For the first board, we have control still. You and your minions deal 20% times increased damage to crowd control enemies. Previously, there was a slow versus stun. Now it's just in general. So say you're always decrepifying everything. That's that bonus just always going. Then we come to our first board extension, which is obviously Cult Leader. For the glyph, we have still Dead Razor in this spot. Dead Razor is really good because it gives a bonus to minion damage and damage reduction modifiers in its range, such as damage reduction for your minions, or more importantly, just summon damage. So it's phenomenal on specifically this board. This is how I get it activated, while min-maxing just specifically minion attack speed when coming past Puppeteer. That saves me a few points to spare on other things. But now let's come to the third board, which is of course Hulking Monstrosity, which is going to massively increase the damage of your golem. On this glyph, we have Corporeal, and the reason that we have this here is that Corporeal will give a bonus to all magic nodes within range. The ones we care about specifically are the ones that are just going to increase the golem damage by basically double. So that's pretty damn fantastic. I've awkwardly got it at 50 intelligence because it just kind of happens as I go through the board. But intelligence is our main stat, so it's fine either way. I come down to pick up Frenzy Golem for the attack speed and golem damage. Specifically, the attack speed ones are the ones that are most valuable here. On the way out, we pick up Hulking Monstrosity and also dump a couple points into Borrowed Strength just to grab it as a perk. But then we're coming up to our next board, which is Scent of Death for the DR that's going to provide. In any case, this is where we're finally putting the Golem glyph, massively increasing the Golem damage by additive and multiplier. The more willpower we get, the more additive we get. So we get as much as we can on this board, which is 54 in this case. But then we work our way left through Scent of Death itself, picking up Ruin as a little bit increase on the way for just 2 points, bringing us to our next board. This board is Flesh Eater. This is how we're massively improving our DPS. You just have to be a little bit aware. If you're going into a boss fight with Flesh Eater, you want to make sure that you're at 4 out of 5 corpses consumed, so that when you're ready, you can pop one corpse mid-fight, get that 40% times increased damage, and then burst to hell. The glyph for this one though is finally Gravekeeper, which is a major DPS increase, and we're generating tons of corpses, so this is actually giving us a ton of extra damage, up to that 12% times for every close corpse. It also gives us a nice bonus to all rare nodes within range, and if you're struggling with say resistance to all elements, this can be quite a big increase, which is really nice. Also good damage nodes here with something like Targeted, and it's easy to get active at a min-max level. With that we head up to the top, we'll come through Stifle, which is a nice bit of extra crit strike damage, and that brings us to the final board, where as usual, it's pretty much just going to be a glyph board. The most common glyph board for this is Bloodbath, because it comes with Hardened. It gives you a little bit more damage while fortified, and we are fortifying ourselves pretty consistently because of our skill tree. Mainly though, this is just about having a glyph spot, where we have Essence in this case for the crit strike damage increase. It's pretty easy to get pretty high dex on this board as well, so it just is very effective. But yeah, that's the Paragon. But now it's time for the big one. It's the gear. Starting with aspects, then I'll go to affixes, then I'll go to tempering and reference masterwork targets too. From top to bottom, let's start with the helmet. As per usual, I'm still using Occult Dominion just to get more warriors and skeletal mages. On the chest, I'm still using Hardened Bones. You could have this on your legs, it doesn't really matter. The chest piece is one of the most important pieces though, because of the affixes that we're going to talk about. Still maxing out your DR just for having minions, 25% increase. It's super good. On the legs, on the other hand, I now have Blood Getters instead of having them on my boots. This is a major damage increase because it's empowering you by a massive amount, right? Which in turn buffs up the minions. We always have the priest buffing us, so it's just always going. On the gloves for the offensive slot, it doesn't really matter whether this is in your rings or not. I just have my gloves. It's still Grasping Veins, giving us that hefty crit strike chance increase and the crit strike damage on top. But it's the strike chance that matters more because that applies to the minions. For the boots, this is kind of a weird spot. I like running movement speed, but I don't have the aspect at a good roll that I would probably run for this. What I'm talking about is the aspect of Slaughter. You get 20% movement speed just flat out, but you lose it when you take damage until 2.5 seconds later on a top roll where you've not taken damage. This is really important because you're going to need this aspect to survive Lilith. Dodging those missiles is a required part of the fight. They don't let you avoid it now. So you're going to need this movement speed to avoid those. But this isn't a great aspect if you've got a low roll. 5 seconds of not taking damage is too long. So as an alternative, I'm just running the one that gives me movement speed and crit strike. I got it as a random roll. It's fine, but I'd rather be rolling Slaughter for movement. For DPS though, obviously you want to be running a Photic. This empowers your warriors to also deal shadow damage. If you're using the Shadow Blight key passive, as I'll explain, then you're going to want this for extra damage. But mobility is nice for speed clear and pit clearing, so I just run that whenever I can. But if I want serious DPS, I definitely consider swapping the boots. Speaking of swapping, I have an uber unique. It's the Grandfather. It's massively improving the critical strike damage that I have, and this is op optimal for speed clear, for bursting. Otherwise, you're going to be running the blighted on a 2-hand. It could be a sword, but I do think Scythe's better for the raw damage per hit being higher on average. This aspect will increase your damage after you get the Shadow Blight key passive to trigger 10 times. It's a massive 240% times increase, which is ridiculous, and that's obviously better for single target. So if you don't happen to have an uber unique, you should be running Shadow Blight and then blighted on your 2-hand weapon to maximize that effect. But for maximum burst, which is what this is all about, obviously Grandfather's going to do better because you don't need any build up of shadow damage over time. It just hits immediately. In the meantime though, run Blighted with the Shadow Blight key passive instead. For the amulet, it is indeed reanimation. This is better consistent DPS. Constant 60% times increased damage for your minions is obviously great, but unyielding is actually better for burst. So there's argument for running unyielding commander on your amulet instead of reanimation. It's whether you want consistent damage or you want more burst for, say, single target opening burst. Personally, I prefer reanimation right now. Consistent DPS is just better for what we're doing at this point. The other aspect unmentioned though is just Frenzied Dead. Each time one of your summoned minions damages an enemy, we get that attack speed increase up to 45% on a top roll. So that would bring it up to 55% right there. Plus Callan's Edict in my case, that's another 33%. That would bring us up to 88% on an attack speed bonus for our minions. If they're getting my attack speed bonus, that'll put them over the 100% threshold. So I'm not getting, say, 30% times increase. I'm getting 150, which is pretty damn good. But that's the aspects and the swaps that I want to mention for the weapon and the boots. Now it's the affixes. The main thing here is to make sure your armor and your resistances are good. As long as your armor is over, say, 9,300, you're good. And then for your resistances, these are the 4 most important ones, with shadow resistance being the least important of the lot. If I'm going to go against a shadow resistant boss though, I will just like swap in some shadow resistance to get that capped out. But you want to get 70% in all of them. Ideally, how you do that is up to you. For example, I have some fire res on my helmet. Generally though, we're looking for maximum life on every single piece that we can get to make ourselves as survivable as possible. As long as you're over the cap of armor, you don't need to increase armor anymore, and I've just pushed myself over that, so I could even get more max life potentially. The most important affix to think about though is Golem Mastery, found specifically on your chest piece. So if your chest piece doesn't have 2 ranks of Golem Mastery, minimum, you need to change your chest piece and find a new one that has it. This is how I'm getting 2 extra levels to Golem Mastery, massively increasing the damage of our Golem. It's possible to get +4 ranks on this, but at a minimum, the +2 to Golem Mastery must be on your chest piece. Otherwise, max life and intelligence, always. On the gloves, you'll notice I've got Skeletal Mage Mastery because you cannot get Golem Mastery. That's the second best alternative, so I find that wherever I can. On offensive slots, attack speed and crit strike chance are the other 2 most important things, and then intelligence under that. You want attack speed to push Cult Leader as far as you can, and you want crit strike chance to make the Golem hit as hard as possible. Again, on the legs, we can get Skeletal Mage Mastery, so I do the same thing. Intelligence, max life. On the boots, I want some movement speed because that's very nice, but you can sneak some Skeletal Warrior Mastery, so why not? And then the other main stat is intelligence. For the weapon, I've got intelligence, more max life, and raw damage. The amulet's very important. You need Hellbent Commander levels. If you don't have that on your amulet, that's what you're looking for. Again, Hellbent Commander's increasing the damage that your minions deal massively, but you need to be standing near them for them to get the perk. It's the best thing you could possibly get for this build on your amulet as an affix, so that's the most important priority. After that, attack speed and crit strike chance are very important, and max life again on every piece you can get it on where possible. For the rings, it's the same thing. Intelligence, attack speed, crit strike chance. Okay, so that brings us to tempering. Under utility and profane innovation, you can increase the radius of corpse tendrils and decrepify. So what you're looking to do is to get 2 corpse tendrils and 2 decrepify increases, and then 1 extra one in either one. So I've got corpse tendril increase on my head, chest, and gloves. Then I have decrepify increase on my legs and my boots. Defensively, again, more max life is the thing that we're looking for, so I've got that on my head. I've got total armor on this chest piece, but honestly, I could have gone for max life instead at this point. On offensive slots, it's golem damage #1 priority, so we've got that on our gloves. Again, I've got total armor as the other one on my legs. This could have been max life, and that'd probably be better at this point. For boots, it's movement speed as that other temper. For the weapon, it's quite interesting. I think golem damage is the most important priority, and the utility of the Skeletal Priest effect duration is really nice. But for max DPS, I would have been looking for minion attack speed or even chance for skeletal mages to attack twice. because, you know, the utility, the benefit, the Skeletal Priest is nice, but it's not a DPS increase, where the others are. For the amulet, it's very important that you're looking for golem active cooldown reduction so that you can slam more often, and then also, yeah, just golem raw damage. Same thing for your rings, golem damage up. Ultimate cooldown is a nice secondary, but the golem active cooldown reduction is the goal. My rings are a bit awkward because I got the golem active reduction on one ring, then I got the golem damage on the other, while the other temper is a bit awkward, not optimal. But that's tempering. In terms of Masterworking, obviously you can't quite control which one it upgrades when you do the 4th Masterworking like roll, but increasing your golem output is the most important thing, and getting your crit strike chances close to 100% and your attack speed high enough for your minions, those are what you're looking for ideally for output. My crit strike chance right now is 36%, but I'm getting an extra 25% from my corpse tendrils, so it's more like 51% at all times. If I went for a bit more crit strike chance on my amulet, I could push that even higher, and I am thinking about it. Finally, for gems, as you can see, it's pretty much the standard stuff. You want increased vulnerable damage in your weapon. Hilariously, I don't have the 20% best ones just yet. Health increase in all of your defensive armor. And then it depends what you're lacking on resistances for your actual jewelry. Whatever gets you to 70% in everything, or as close to that as possible, you run that. So I've just got poison res, lightning res, cold res here, but you could be doing all resistance. It depends on your setup. Now for a quick little highlight of how you maximize the combo. Essentially, you're looking to maximize the hit of every golem slam. So in the opening, you've got everything available, right? You want to make sure Corpse Eater's ready to proc by, you know, prepping 4 stacks of it. You want to be stacking up your Shadow Blight if you're using that with, say, Blight and your minion attacks. Once that hits 10 stacks, you're going to get a massive damage increase. So that's during that window you want to be slamming. Army the Dead being active is going to be a major DPS increase too. Decrepifying them for the curse increase. Corpse Tendriling them. Basically, all you're doing is giving yourself as many buffs as possible before doing your first golem slam, and then getting as many golem slams off during that as possible. Maintain these buffs as best you can. Sometimes you have some of them and not all of them, but whenever your ultimate Army of the Dead's about ready, you want to make sure they're all ready to go at the same time to get the biggest hit and the maximum DPS possible. But yeah, there you have it. That is my update to the build, level 100, and all the stuff that I've been doing with it. Like I say, I think I can make this more survivable. I think I could push this more single target, but this right now is that perfect balance that I've been working with and doing very well with. I will be testing more things, and as we progress, maybe survivability becomes more of a really required thing for higher pits, but I think your average player is just going to do pit level 61 as a minimum and probably won't go too much higher than that, and this is just going to crush that. Either way, I've been very successful so far, and I hope this build is what you were looking for. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.